Hello everyone, welcome to Neon Rabbit. Today, I'm going to start reading from Shattering Swords, Volume 1. If you like this book, you can go ahead and buy it at the link below. If you enjoy the reading, please like and subscribe to the channel. With all that business out of the way, we'll just get started. First Saga of the Metamorphosis Era, Prelude. The beginning was as it always has been, covered in smoke and blood. Her hair lashed in the ashen wind, and her tear ducts unleashed a stream reacting to the molten copper steam strung through the atmosphere. All around her, drones dropped alongside those whose implants relied on a constant flow of electrons. Juliana winced as the last white light of crashing bomber went off to her right. The battle was won. The last bastion of the South had been seized. She stood upon the banks of the Crescent City, or rather, what precious bits had been left of it, wondering how the world would look now. It was, of course, the blackest new moon night. No resistance fought during the day, if possible. She sank to her knees, embracing the strange comfort. How can we begin again? She thought. The people now liberated had gone through years upon years of brainwash from every vector. So many had been slaughtered on both sides, always by some mistake on her part, or with great deliberation from the enemy. The water was clear, a mirror flowing smoothly. Bright, emerald eyes reflected back. Conqueror, murderer, destroyer of lives. But she knows how history will be written. La Confederatio de Liberados Personages stormed in a flame of freedom across the deep South, finally forcing nearly the last remnants of the American Empire's core to join the first true civilization. That is what they will say. There will be paintings, photos of her heroically smashing drones with her axe, EMP rifle in hand. She would be seen breaking slaves' chains with a laser cutter. But she knows who she is. Bloodstained, conqueror, murderer, destroyer of lives. This is the beginning. Throughout the tumult of human history, this wretched opening of the gates is how it always has been. She accessed her contacts to look at how the rest of the world saw what was happening. Surprisingly, some personal cybernetic systems continued. Across Europe, where the revolution had been considerably more easy, there was a celebration in the streets. American flags were being burned on virtually every block. Effigies of Christ Corp CEOs were being eviscerated. People ran through alleyways waving flags of black and red with the center circle of green so beautifully. Shifting to East Asia, there was a wailing of the rich, their fortunes destroyed for good. There'd be no repayment of debt. But the people waved the same flags she saw in Europe. No more would they be subjugated to endless time, forfeiting themselves for the wealth of some distant white men. They knew the Confederation was coming to them as well. It was in their eyes, their tears. Those brave and battered souls were going to make it happen. A deep breath. It was worth every failure. Looking at herself once more in the river, she felt the sudden need to primp. Juliana tightened her ebony braids, washed the ash and blood from her face with the river's cold water. Already, petulant, tiny press drones were fluttering around her. 1. "What the fuck do you think you were doing?" screamed Dorian. "You kill almost a full third of your own troops." Juliana stared at him blankly. "I had no choice. There were drones everywhere. They had us surrounded. They'd have been killed nonetheless. I kept warning you we shouldn't be taking in people who were augmented for health issues to fight in a fucking war where EMP bombs were all over the place. It's not my fault you're a fucking idiot." "Whatever. You're such an incessant pain in the ass," snapped Dorian in his Gentile Savannah accent. "The next meeting is in New Asheville 3 days from now. Be here and be sober, goddammit." "Don't count on it. Do you see the world I live in? What kind of fucked up person would stay sober in this shit?" She smiled cunningly. Dorian sighed. "We'll be deciding what to do with the other collectives. Everyone is going to sign the protocol. We've essentially won where it matters. Godspeed, and I hate you." He didn't. They loved each other. More than most friends who spoke the gentlest words. 3 days, then. More than enough for her to find Patrice. Even under the extraordinary horrors this city managed to stay alive, he would be somewhere still. Somewhere that wasn't blown to hell and back by either her or Christ Corp. Somewhere seedy and dimly lit. He was needed. Without the research he'd consistently stolen from Christ Corp's vaults, there'd be no way in hell they could fulfill so much of what the protocol promised. Technologies for life extension and advanced genetic modification of foods had almost been exclusively controlled by those pigs. The Confederation had made the grand promise of feeding the approximate final number of 10 billion mouths. Not only that, but dramatically increasing the life quality and health of the aged. It was a ridiculously ambitious declaration of goals from the beginning. The world needed the belief that it was possible before anyone would ever decide to join the seeds of what became the largest resistance to power in human history. People wanted a feasible hope for the transformation of society. They wanted to know that if they fought, there would be a livable future for their children, at the very least. They'd make a sanguine sacrifice for it. It was true. It was possible. But she needed Patrice Dominic to make it happen. That sanguine sacrifice had been made. She found her way into the largely intact French Quarter a few hours after giving commands to whatever automated machinery remained to remove cadavers and wreckage. It seemed as if no one, not even Christ Corp, wanted to lay waste to this vivacious region. Of course, the elites within America's most vitally repressed regions wanted the quarter preserved for their own reasons, simultaneously clandestine and obvious. It was, Juliana guessed, almost 4 a.m. now, prime time for Patrice to be out and about. He'd have probably been watching the battle from the rusted iron rail rooftops, with everyone else, she guessed, drinking bourbon and yelling up at the fluctuating chromatic flashes in the sky, as she brought them Liberigo. Juliana was correct. Same place as always. They'd met here in what seemed like ages ago, sitting on a rooftop drinking absinthe, twirling around under the light of a gibbous moon as they talked of endeavor, building something bigger than what was essentially their self-righteous community defense gangs roaming the cityscapes, and the barely effective grassroots organizations that did little more than talk and put band-aids on gaping wounds. As she stepped upon the initial mildewed steps to that front door, she remembered his black leather coat snapping in the wind, the smell of decay in the air, the rot of so many dying swamps' gases seeping into the city. In his eyes, almond and gold, eternally she saw what the future should be. Before Red Resistance had made their rising crescendo from the burning rubble of business districts, shortly before the brief but terrifying moments of the Third World War, Patrice was there, yelling into the night sky with her, screaming into a void studded with stars for a world which seemed would never come. Her Grand Master of Subterfuge was there yet again, his voice unmistakable. The last dungeon was ringing with delight as the terror of its patrons faded, those folk truly free for the first time in over a decade. Pure, visceral freedom. It pulsed from corridor to door. It paced through her body before the first gold, green, and purple streamers blasted past her face. Only in that opening moment of beauty did she truly embrace a crisp reality. Christ Corp is truly dead, she spoke to herself softly. I killed it. Every one of their CEOs is departed. Everything they owned will belong to us all in 3 fucking days. We did it, and I can finally be with Patrice in the way we should have always been. Alive, in love, creating from raw materials in which not offing ourselves makes sense for a change. Hunting him in this crowd was more difficult than usual. It seemed every single human being that wasn't surefire straight was out tonight. The fluidity was astounding. Everyone around her had suddenly found life again. Dancers indistinguishable floated past, writhing, themselves. Booming beats of a happy house track thrashed the air. Good-for-naught currency spilled downwards. Cocktails spilled on hands and homespun high fashion while people danced, bouncing around the dance floor, waving fists and yelling along with lyrics. An old comrade from her street gang in the mid-2020s approached. A petite Japanese lady with delicately crafted UV reactive face tattoos at work in the black light.
"Holy crap, what up, girl?"
Screeched Marcy Johnson.
"How'd y'all even win? I was watching it live on Fox News, and it just seemed for sure you was as good as dead. Which is why they were broadcasting, I guess, to snatch away any hope. I mean, dude, old boys must have thought the same thing. They must have been freaking out while all them drones dropped."
She kept essentially repeating herself and rambling for a minute or so before allowing Juliana to even say hello. How this city managed to keep its drugs flowing under Christ Corp government, Juliana could only wonder. When she walked up the stairwells, the music crashed into sudden silence. Juliana felt hundreds of eyes pouring in upon her. In 4 broken syllables her name crashed down. "Juliana! Juliana!" In the midst of it, maybe 2 minutes into this wholly embarrassing moment, a voice shouted out, "Shut the fuck up!" "Wait, what?" Silence. Patrice commands that kind of silence. Alas, it was him, sinking down from the upper spiral stairwell from the opposite end of the room, clearly on the down end of whatever psychedelic he'd ingested for the evening. "Yes, it's me," she said, almost too quietly to be heard. He exuded that smile, the one they gave each other always. "My lovely warrior, future's door," she almost heard without words. The world was almost free, and their lover's dream was a minute roadblock away. No one in New Orleans would be sleeping till the afternoon, and everyone knew it. After the crowd was bored with their kiss, the music, discordant and raging, coursed again. The South was rising again, the right way this time. The evaporation of exquisite arrogance. Patrice woke with shifting colors still too luminous for his eyes to follow. Future drugs did their work well. A reliable outfit of renegade chemists, that bunch. Juliana sat on a windowsill, muttering commands to the robots below. From the vantage point of his bed he could see the streets cleared of rubble. Her opal gown stretched the spectrum. Already the machines metabolized new brick, concrete, and metal from the old. A technological elegance at play. In the distance it seemed as if a wall was being built along the banks. "They're actually fixin' shit," she thought. "Yes, we are," she spoke, pointing to the extraordinarily hardened techno-empathic implant under her hair, one of the only parts of her enhancement where to survive the blast unimpaired. "I wasn't lying when I said I wanted to change everything. Were you?" "No," he replied. "I'm just kinda blown away. Y'all got this far just by smashing patents and open sourcing everything? The press drones are reporting the city's been a tenth rebuilt in a matter of hours. I'm impressed, really. I know why you're here, but I'm wondering if you even really need me at this point." Juliana looked over dourly. Queerly constituted Cuban, Sicilian features pouring through the playing sunshine. "You're going to help us finish it. You know we've got a whole goddamn world to save. World War III and uprisings have pretty much wrecked everything where we haven't held power for long. You're coming back with me, tomorrow." He brushed the dirty blonde bangs from his forehead, going 100% emo retro all the way. Fully 35 years old and still dressed like an adolescent. It was amusing, with thick lips and broken teeth, too many years living under Christ Corp. He lisped, "This is the thing. I kinda left all that research I jacked with the cult, like real big, super rich neo-pagan cult, in a kinda weird spot. They promised to protect everything I collected in case I died, you failed, and they had to work on their own. I figured it was the safest bet because, really, I didn't expect either me or you to live for very long after things truly hit the grinder." The morning's breakfast consisted of fresh eggs rapidly imported from newly freed farms, shipments of fresh fruit from the California collectives not ravaged by the climate chaos poured into their ravenous mouths as well. Already, Cafe Desmond was being reconstituted sketch by sketch through the work of glistening, elegant robots. In a few weeks, everything would be perfect, excluding the drastically reduced population. Within themselves, everyone gave a wailing cry for the lost. Christ Corp had killed as many indentured servants as possible rather than taking the risk of them starting an insurrection during the final conflict. The sun, backed by a crisp blue sky, was sweet, even in the heat of the infernal afternoon. Hydrostatic pressure cracked open fresh wounds in sidewalks, releasing water. A trickling sound on cobblestone created the perfect ambiance. Juliana wondered quietly to herself the point of returning to duties serious and sour. She could just send Patrice away a year with all this hush-hush R&D and relax. Watch the great Gulf Wall constructed. Watch this accursed place come back to life. "Where's this cult?" she asked, with sudden hesitation, knowing the unwieldy nature of his plan-making. Patrice smiled weakly. Guiding himself in a gross scuffle across the room, he put on a classic by Godspeed You Black Emperor. He worked himself into an annoying frenzy. More patiently than ever, she awaited his dramatic pose. Then she heard the impossible. Patrice whispered, "Believe it or not, beneath the gulf, baby, beneath the water." It was true. So ends Chapter 1 of Shattering Swords, Volume 1, by Severian Xavier. This has been a Neon Rabbit production. And again, if you like this book, there's a link below where you can purchase a copy for yourself. Please like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss out on Chapter 2. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.